It was a Wednesday evening when I first sensed that my world, my safe, predictable, happy world, wasn't at all what I thought it was. I'd come home from work a little early, hoping to catch my wife, Helen, maybe share a glass of wine before dinner. I could hear her moving around upstairs in our bedroom, so I headed up, planning to surprise her. As I walked down the hallway, I heard Helen on the phone. The nearer I got, the more I caught of her side of the conversation. "Yeah, honey, today was great. I really enjoyed it." That stopped me cold. Since when does Helen talk like that about work? She's always been a straight shooter, not the "today was great, honey" type. My heart started pounding for reasons I couldn't explain. Our bedroom door was ajar. I peeked in just in time to see her undressing while still talking on her cell. She slipped off her skirt, tossed it onto the bed. She was wearing black lace panties I'd never seen before. I almost walked in, but then she said, "I need to go. He might be home soon, and I have to shower. We'll talk tomorrow. Bye, handsome." My stomach dropped. She tossed the phone onto the charger and pulled off her blouse. Now she was in a black lace bra, her back to me. She slid her underwear into the hamper and moved toward the bathroom. Passing the mirror, because what woman doesn't check her reflection, she stopped. From where I stood in the hallway, I had a perfect view. And what I saw made me freeze. Reflected in the glass was a dark bruise, clear as day, on her left breast, a mark I sure as hell didn't put there. I heard her gasp. She must have seen it too. "Damn," she muttered. "Now I have a trail to cover. Oh my God." She walked into the bathroom and turned on the shower. I just stood there, numb, trying not to lose it. My name is Douglas Doug Harris. I'm 56 years old, a chemical engineer by trade. Helen has been my wife for 23 years. We have 2 kids. Grace is 24, Lucas is 21. Helen works part-time in procurement at the Regional Defense Supply Depot on Fort Wilkes. Until a few minutes ago, I thought we had a rock-solid marriage, a good life. Apparently, I was the only one who thought so. When I could finally move again, I went back into the bedroom and grabbed Helen's cell. I wanted to check the last incoming number. That's when I noticed her phone was locked with a password. We'd never locked our phones before. Sometimes we even used each other's phones to call family or friends. When did that change? I lifted her blouse, brought it to my face. There was a faint, unfamiliar scent, maybe aftershave, not mine. I tried to keep it together. Back in the kitchen, I took the DVR in a Ziploc bag, then returned upstairs. I dropped the underwear into the bag, sealed it, reminding myself to order one of those home DNA kits and send it to the lab at work. I set up the DVR on the dresser, pointed at the mirror, camouflaged it with one of my ties, almost invisible. As I was heading back downstairs, I spotted her laptop glowing on the desk. Normally, I wouldn't touch her stuff, but tonight I couldn't help it. I tried to check her email, password protected. Another first, more secrets. My head was spinning. Part of me wanted to barge into the bathroom and confront her right then and there, but I had no real proof. She'd deny it, turn it around, and I'd end up the bad guy. No, I needed ironclad evidence, and I needed to know who she was seeing so I could decide what to do with him, too. So I did something I'd never done before. I called Helen's cell, knowing she was in the shower, and told her I was stuck at work and wouldn't be home for dinner. I hid the evidence in the garage and drove to the closest bar I could think of, a quiet, half-empty place with a shabby little lodge next door. Nothing special. Cheap drinks, basic food, anonymity. When I walked in, I noticed a new bartender. Great, I thought. Hope she can make a gin and tonic. She could. Her name was Marcia, and she was easy to talk to. Divorced mom, just trying to get by. I got home around 11. The house was quiet. Everyone was already in bed. I went upstairs to change, and as I was slipping into my robe, Helen murmured, "You're late tonight, honey." "Sorry to wake you," I said, turning away so she wouldn't see how shaken I was. "It's been a long day." I stared at Helen for a long moment, not sure whether to feel anger, heartbreak, or pure exhaustion. She gave me that familiar sigh, one you hear after too many years together. The sigh that says, "Let's not fight right now." "I'll make it up to you if you're feeling neglected," she whispered, then rolled over and tugged the sheets to her chin. "I'm just too tired, Doug. Maybe in a day or two?" She didn't even look at me. I forced a tight smile, said, "Sure, Helen," and slipped out of bed. Downstairs, I retrieved the hidden recorder, my hands actually trembling. I cabled it to my laptop on the kitchen island and scrubbed the video until she appeared stepping from the shower, pausing at the mirror, 2 fingers tracing the bruise another man had painted on her. Instead of crawling naked beneath the covers the way she always had, she buttoned herself into faded flannel pajamas, as if suddenly cold. I clipped the telling 30-second segment, deleted the rest, and re-hid the camera. On my way back up, I nudged the thermostat 4 degrees higher. Let's see how she enjoys sleeping in layers. When I slid under the quilt, Helen was either sound asleep or giving a master class in pretending. Thursday before dawn, I bailed on the house. I needed distance to think. I rang my old buddy Cliff Logan, the man who'd already survived this brand of hell. "Come over," he said, voice soft as wet gravel. Cliff's dining room looked like a forensics lab. Mugs of sludge, thick coffee, printouts, and a line of palm-sized audio units he'd once planted on his ex. He pressed 5 of them into my palm. "Truth hurts," he muttered. "But guessing hurts worse." By the time I left, a plan had taken shape. Helen's SUV was gone, so I stashed 4 recorders around the house: the kitchen ceiling vent, my tie rack, the entertainment console, the laundry shelf fan. Slid the 5th beneath her driver's seat. The air felt colder than usual. A glance at the thermostat showed she'd cranked it down, maybe still running hot from last night's mystery date. Hunting for answers, I rifled her closet. Skirts I'd never seen, clingy tops, lingerie black and crimson, some torn like they'd been yanked off in haste. My gut twisted. Who was this woman? That afternoon, I left a voicemail. Working late again, don't wait up, and made sure to climb into bed only after she'd nodded off. Friday repeated on loop. Minimal words, no eye contact, 2 strangers under one roof. Saturday, I rose early, fried eggs for Grace and Lucas, left Helen's plate warming in the microwave, and quietly dropped the house Wi-Fi, forcing every device onto my hardline switch. When she finally padded downstairs clutching her laptop, frustration pinched her face. "Doug, the Fee's dead." I smiled. "Let's take a look." While she hovered, I diagnosed the router, all the while loading a tiny keylogger script onto her machine. Nothing a casual user would ever notice. By Sunday dawn, the recorders had delivered only silence-creaking floors, refrigerator hum, the soft static of my own paranoia. But a different package lit up my phone. The 24-hour express panel I'd mailed with her discarded underwear had come back flagged mixed male DNA detected. I printed the report twice, own copy for my lawyer, one for the living room coffee table. At noon, I called, "Family meeting." Helen shuffled in first, kids on her heels, and froze when she saw the branded envelope from Brookwood Diagnostics. Grace knelt to read, her voice cracking. "Mom, why does this say foreign Y chromosome present?" Lucas's eyes went wide. Helen's face drained to chalk. I said nothing, just hit play on the mirror cam clip. 30 seconds of silent footage. The bruise. The pajamas filled our big screen television. You could hear the kids' breathing hitch. Helen clutched her robe, whispering, "Doug, please." But the evidence spoke louder than she ever could. I killed the video, laid a second envelope on the table, a sealed STI panel I'd picked up and never opened. "We'll drive to the clinic tomorrow," I said evenly. All of us. Full tests, full answers. Grace burst into tears. Lucas swore under his breath. Helen reached for the envelope with shaking hands and couldn't even break the seal. The shame in that room was nuclear, exactly the ignition I needed. While they sat in stunned silence, I powered up my laptop, the hidden keylogger, already siphoning her keystrokes into a folder labeled QB Books. Somewhere in that data lay the name of the man who'd left that bruise, and when I found him, I planned to return the favor methodically, legally, and with the whole family watching. I sat at the kitchen table, opening my own laptop and remote linking to Helen's. The K-logger utility I'd slipped in the night before was already pumping data into a hidden folder on my drive. Interesting, I murmured, giving her machine a casual once, over as she hovered nearby, a shade too attentive. Mine connects just fine. Let's check yours. Every time I clicked toward a system panel, she drifted off, pretending to tidy the counter, then circled back, eyes darting to the screen as though the pixels might betray her. The moment she left for more than 60 seconds, I popped in a flash drive and triggered the rest of the payload. Screen snaps every 30 seconds, a soft sniffer on her encrypted mail cache, a tiny parser that would siphon any QB Books exports she touched. My stomach churned, part guilt, part caffeine, part raw fear, but shadows were worse. When she patted back in, I shut the terminal, smiled. Looks like you're connected now, but your storage is seriously fragmented. Hit this button tonight. Let it run while you sleep, it'll tidy up the drive. She slid her arms round my neck, brushed a wistful kiss across my cheek. Thank you, big guy. How can I repay you for your services? I kept the smile, patted her shoulder. Maybe wash my truck, I joked. The flicker of disappointment in her eyes almost hurt, but I let it hang there and carried the mower outside, letting the engine's roar drown the war inside my head. That evening, we queued up 2 old movies with Grace and Lucas. Helen curled against me the way she had years ago, laughing too brightly, guilt dripping from every forced giggle. Halfway through the second film, I drifted to the kitchen for a drink, palmed one of her half-milligram chill pills, and let the fog settle over my nerves. 15 minutes later, I could barely keep my eyes open. I'm wiped, I mumbled, waved off her attempt to start a third movie, and slipped upstairs alone. By dawn, I was at my desk. Lights off, only the glow of the monitor and the soft scroll of harvested text. The overnight dump from her laptop filled 84 pages. I searched for domains outside her work server and found one. Revargas, consult.io. First hit 4 months back. Hey, gorgeous. Acid burned my throat. I rolled upward through the thread. Rafael Vargas bragging about our Wednesday tradition. Helen apologizing for bruises she couldn't hide. Him shrugging it off, it happens. Forget your husband. Then her message from yesterday. I love my husband. I can't keep hurting him. I'm not meeting you this Wednesday. A hesitating retreat, but retreat all the same. The truth was finally in daylight, ugly and indisputable. I printed the worst exchanges, tucked them beneath the DNA report on the coffee table, and called another family meeting. Grace and Lucas shuffled in pajama-clad, eyes still puffy from yesterday's shock. Helen followed, robes cinched tight, lips bloodless. Without a word, I pressed play. A silent slideshow of screenshots your inbox, the bruise reflected in the bathroom mirror, Raphael's smirking lines. Grace's hand flew to her mouth. Lucas whispered something I couldn't hear. I slid the STI panel beside the printouts. Clinic opens at 9, I said. Full work. Up for everyone in this house. Helen's knees buckled. She caught the arm of the sofa and stared at the floor. The silence was thunder. Proof in triplicate now lay between us. Flesh, blood, and digital ink. What I did next would decide whether our family shattered quietly or detonated in public, but one thing was finally certain. I was done living in the dark. The next 2 emails from Raphael swung to syrupy apology, half panicked, half teenage crush. He promised he'd be extra careful, begged forgiveness, even floated whisking Helen away to someplace warm, just the 2 of them. His sign-off made my skin crawl. I love you, Helen. Her reply iced my spine. Helen wrote that she was glad he finally understood the situation, and that from now on she'd only travel with her husband. No more meetings this Wednesday. I'll be busy making amends at home. The marks should fade in a week. Digging deeper hurt worse. Threads going back 2 months spelled it out. They'd been using the Silver Pines Lodge, the same roadside place across from that little bar where I'd once tried to drown my misery. Vargas's firm kept room 106 on permanent standby for regional reps. One message even listed step-by-step directions from the lot to the room, like punching a time clock. Just as I was about to close the laptop, a fresh ping lit the screen. Raphael, answering her midnight change of heart. Can't spend the week without you. Meet Wednesday at 1. I'll be careful. His reply gushed right back. That was my breaking point. Denial died on the spot. A plan started breathing. I needed Cliff. I forwarded the ugliest emails to Cliff, then set about making breakfast. My hands vibrated each time the pan clanged. Around 9:30, Helen Drive ifed it in, stretching like it was any lazy Sunday. Thanks for letting me sleep in, hon. She looped her arms around me. I'll need you working hard tonight, too. I pretended the last line didn't land, mumbled that I had chores to finish in the garage. On my way out, I caught a flicker of worry cross her face before the rehearsed smile returned. Holler if you need anything, Helen, I called. Her answer, okay, came out the size of a pebble. While I sorted a crate of old wrenches, my phone buzzed. Cliff. I stepped outside for cold air. Talk to me. I read every line, he said, voice low. Sorry, Doug. At least it's clear. Yeah. Now it's about proof the law can't ignore and making him sweat. You want footage? I've still got the gear. Silver Pine's manager owes me a favor. I'll ask for a master for 106. When Vargas clears out, we wire the room. Motion, trigger cams, no constant feed. Receiver stashes in a utility closet. You park nearby and pull the dump. 2 hours tops. Full day of data. I didn't hesitate. Set it up. Not just for me, I want him to feel the floor drop. Cliff promised a background run on Vargas first thing Monday. Then we locked in Tuesday for installation. When the call ended, a weird stillness settled, like a heavy door thudding shut. Sunday blurred. Dusk crawled over Brookwood and something twisted inside me. Despite everything, part of me still wanted earthy echo of who we'd been before the rot. From the hallway, Helen's voice floated in. Soft, careful. Doug, are you coming to bed? Even the most broken machines keep clanking along until the exact moment the engineer decides to pull the main breaker for good. I love you, Helen whispered, curling into me, her hair brushing my chest. Then, almost like she wanted to twist the knife, she added, You're the only man in the world for me. Her lips were slow, sweet, practiced, and for half a second I wanted to believe her. I kissed back, told her to rest, and ducked into the bathroom. The lock clicked. Fury bloomed white, hot. How could she breathe those words after inviting another man into her life? How could she lie in our bed and still keep Raphael in orbit? It felt like stepping into some cruel parallel universe. When I came out, she was already snoring peaceful as a saint. I lay awake, eyes on the ceiling till dawn. Monday broke gray. Sometime in the night, she'd wriggled back into flannel, her quiet signal that the bruise still stung. I dressed, slipped out before sunrise, rang work, and steered straight to Cliff's place. Cliff had intel. He'd spoken to the manager at Silver Pine's lodger friend, Raphael Vargas. Wasn't just meeting Helen there. Several women rotated through room 106 like it was his private clubhouse. Worse, Vargas bullied the staff, treating the lodge as personal property. Jean, the manager, said Raphael almost never showed before 11 a.m. perfect. We loaded Cliff's surveillance kit into his van. Jean met us in the office, relieved someone was about to muzzle the drama. He handed over a site map, the master key for 106, and pointed out a broom closet 15 yards away ideal for the receiver. A quick call upstairs confirmed the room was empty. Inside, the place smelled of bleach and stale perfume. My gut churned at the thought of what had played out on that scratchy coverlet. Still, we got to work. Motion, cams under the television, pin mic in the smoke alarm, all piped to the covert hub in the closet. 2 hours later, the web was live. On the desk sat Raphael's docked laptop. If he steps out for lunch, I can drop a swear implant, I muttered. Cliff nodded. Just watch your window. I floated the idea of a GPS tag under Vargas's bumper. Cliff raised an eyebrow. Vengeance, yes, reckless, no. Point taken. We crossed to the bar across Highway 14, same place I'd crawled into last week. Empty except for 2 graybeards and Marcia behind the counter. Her face lit up when she saw Cliff, then me. Hey, stranger! She wrapped Cliff in a hug, flashed me a knowing grin. So you're Doug. Any friend of Cliff's is gold in my book. For 10 heartbeats, life almost felt normal beer foam, jukebox hum, small talk. But each sip tasted like a ticking clock. Tomorrow was Wednesday. My fuse was measured in hours, now hours to act, to decide, to break everything for good. It was a little after 2 on a dull, overcast Monday when I noticed that Marcia, Cliff, and I were practically the only warm bodies in the entire bar. She polished the counter with one hand, her community college pharmacology textbook propped open behind the register. "Slow Mondays," she said with a shrug, trying to make it sound like a blessing. No tips, but plenty of time to cram or catch up with friends. She gave me a smile-honest sun. Through clouds warmed for a few minutes the outside world, my collapsing marriage. The bugs in room 106, the web of lies blurred into the background. We meandered through small talk for an hour or more, until Marcia's expression grew serious. She glanced at Cliff. Some silent message passed between them. He answered with a steady, encouraging nod. "Doug," she murmured, lowering her voice, "if we're going to be friends, I can't hide things. Maybe you'll walk away after this, I'd understand, but I'd rather you hear it from me." She reached across and threaded her fingers through Cliff's, gripping as if the bar itself might give way. "Let me tell you how I met this man. He arrested me." Her voice shook, but she pushed on. "I bottomed out in a military holding cell. I remember seeing the camera up in the corner and just breaking. I cried harder than I ever had. Cliff didn't lecture. He simply said I was worth more than the mess I'd made. Nobody had ever said that to me before. I spilled everything, stuff I'd never told another soul. He listened, locked the door, left me alone with my regrets for 14 hours. Then, in court, he showed up in full uniform and argued rehab over prison 90 days to remake myself instead of 4 years hard time. I took the chance, got clean. I'm still on that path." She swallowed. "But I'm paying bills the only way I know, tending bar, piecing shifts together. If that makes you bolt, I get it." The air felt thick enough to chew. Cliff draped an arm around her shoulders. "She's a fighter. That's what counts." I covered her trembling hand with mine. "I'm glad we met, Marcia. Friends don't scare that easily." She nodded, dabbed her cheeks, and for a heartbeat the world seemed kinder. Night fell. Helen came home earlier than usual, clutching cardboard cartons of takeout Chinese. She leaned in for a kiss. I took the bags instead, my voice too cheerful by half. "Great very one, starving." Her smile faltered. "Why don't you freshen up while I plate this?" Guilt flickered in her eyes before she turned down the hall. Dinner was graveyard quiet. Grace and Lucas sensed something but kept their heads down. I shoveled food, pretending normalcy. Helen only stirred noodles. Twice she tried to start real conversation, and twice I answered with murmurs and half smiles. Part of me whispered that I was playing it smart, keeping cards hidden. Another part wondered if I was simply telegraphing the distance. Later, in the dark hush of our room, my body betrayed me. Remembering tenderness my heart no longer felt. I lay awake, measuring the ceiling's shadows, until the faint red glow of the clock rolled past midnight. Tomorrow is Tuesday. By noon, the first covert lenses in Silver Pines Lodge will be awake, watching, recording forensic eyes poised on the bed where Rafael Vargas believes he's untouchable. And maybe, just maybe, when those files hit my drive, the shadows will finally surrender their secrets. And I'd spent Sunday night making Helen feel special, and maybe she still floated on that glow. But the way I kept drifting hot and cold on her felt cheap and calculated, and I worried she'd clam up before I nailed down hard evidence. So I forced the storm in my head behind a half smile. "Sorry," I said. "I dragged home some work drama. Let's start fresh. How was your day?" Relief washed over her almost too fast. All through dinner I kept it light. Small jokes, eye contact, the old comfortable rhythm. For a few minutes we almost resembled the couple we used to be. Helen turned in early. Once she was upstairs, I checked the room, mic still silent, and bumped the thermostat 5 degrees. When I finally slid under the covers, the air was a muggy 77. She lay curled toward the wall. I stared at the shadows until she whispered, "Good night, honey." "Why the heavy flannel?" I asked, letting the suspicion show. "It's sweltering in here." A long pause. Then, barely audible. "I've just been chilly at night." Not buying it. I rolled close, wrapped an arm around her. Her skin was hot and damp. "Feeling sick? Maybe run down." "It's nothing." My hand skimmed, looking for warmth. "I know a few ways to heat you up." She tensed. "Doug, I'm sorry. I'm too tired tonight. I didn't push." She pressed against my back, clinging. "Last night was incredible," she breathed. "But today I can't. Wednesday's light for me. Wednesday night I'll make it up." "Sure," I muttered. Eventually she drifted off. I stared at the dark ceiling, two strangers divided by secrets. Tuesday dawned cool and gray. I left at the usual hour, mind elsewhere. At 10, Cliff called. "GP tags live. Vargas's sedan is pinned." He texted the login. I pulled it up. Raphael's car sat clear across Brookwood. A window. I told the office I'd be out 2 hours and drove home. The recorder LED blinked. I poured coffee, sat at the kitchen table, braced, then hit play. Helen's voice, early Monday, ringing Denise. "D, I had the most incredible sex this weekend." "You saw Raphael?" Denise teased. "No, Doug. Sunday night. Saturday I was wiped. But Sunday? Wow. So what was different?" "I don't know nothing new, but his massage. His hands perfect. Best in years." Denise chuckled. "Better than with Raphael?" "Oh, absolutely. Making love with Doug is safe. I feel seen. Raphael is just excitement to G. Reckless but not love." My gut twisted. Even Denise was cheating. She joked about her own side fling with Brian Sears. I pictured warning her husband, then shelved the thought. The next clip, from this morning, tightened my chest. Helen sounded anxious. "D, Doug noticed the flannel and that I keep changing in the bathroom. He asked about it last night." I stopped the playback. My hand shook. The wall between us was thickening by the hour, and tonight I'd crawl into bed beside her knowing exactly what she was planning for tomorrow. "I was just cold, Denise." But honestly, the room was boiling. Helen confessed into the phone, her words looping in my earbuds. "I sweated all night in those heavy flannels," Doug asked, but he let it drop. She spun excuses to hide the bruise Raphael had branded on her. He wanted to make love Sunday, but I couldn't risk him seeing it. I even killed the nightlight, and he turned it back on. I promised I'd ditch the pajamas Wednesday, yet he still seemed hurt. Her voice dipped. We were lying there, and this wall, God, this wall was between us, and all I could think about was Raphael, not Doug. I stopped the file. That was enough. After a few minutes of mind-numbing web scrolling, I ordered a trace organic test kit, shipping it to the lab at Workone Moore Brick in this slow-motion derailment. Just past noon, I pointed the truck towards Silver Pines Lodge. Vargas's sedan idled in the lot, but it was lunchtime and the place was quiet. Marcia wasn't bartending today, so I watched through the window long enough to spot Raphael hunkered over a menu. Now or never. I crossed the gravel and let myself into room 106 with the master Gene had given us. No glance at the sheet, straight to the side table where his laptop sat open, QB books on screen. Flash drive in, K, logger out. Set to hoover every keystroke, mail header, and ledger entry. I spun up his remote desktop service, poked the right port open on the lodge router, and created a company account tied to his business email. Icons hidden, traces scrubbed. 30 seconds later, the machine looked untouched. I slipped out. Back at the plant, I buried myself in paperwork until the knot in my stomach loosened. By dinner, I was in full dad mode, quizzing Grace on economics and helping Lucas sketch circuit diagrams while I browned taco meat. Helen hovered, edgy, but I kept the mask glued on. 10 o'clock, she announced bedtime. I feigned a backlog of reports. "See you in the morning," she chirped, brittle as glass. Rest up, I thought. Tomorrow's your matinee. Hours of logs, wait, email, siphons, phone taps, lodge cam feeds, but they could sit. I swapped the dashcam card in Helen's SUV while she slept, or pretended to, and slid into bed on the far edge, staring at the ceiling, wondering how I'd meet her eyes at breakfast. Wednesday, she beat the alarm first time in years, already showered, hair coiffed, blouse I hadn't seen in months. Showtime. I shuffled in, poured coffee, kept my gaze on the tile. The kids filed through. Helen plated eggs with forced brightness, stealing worried glances every few seconds. When I slung my bag over my shoulder, she intercepted me at the doorway, voice soft, pleading. "Doug, is something wrong?" Expression flat. I met her stare. "I don't know, Helen. You tell me." I stepped forward and pulled Helen into a hue harder than I meant to, holding on just long enough to keep my voice from cracking. She melted against me, a shaky breath leaving her chest. "I'm glad," she whispered. "I was worried, Doug." I tightened my grip. "I love you, Helen. Can't imagine life without you. There's no other woman on earth I'd ever want to touch." Her arms stiffened, walls jerking up. Then she clung even harder, a quiet sob catching in her throat. "Of course, Doug. Of course. And tonight, I plan to wear you out." I broke the embrace before the mask slipped, grabbed my keys, and walked out without looking back. I had just sworn my love while planning to spend the day harvesting proof she was betting another man. Silver Pines Lodge sat 5 miles outside Brookwood. Raphael's sedan glinted in the lot, but lunchtime kept him inside the diner. Using Jean's master key, I slipped into room 106. No glance at the sheets, straight to the laptop, still open to QB books. Flash drive in. The K. Logger yanked every password, message, and ledger line. I tunneled a remote back door through the lodge router, masked it as a company sync, scrubbed all traces, and was gone in under 3 minutes. Home by 9. I sat motionless in the driveway, palms slick, wondering how I'd face her tonight. Inside, the download spool crept across my screen while I paced the hall like a ghost. Normal dinner talk? Bedtime? Impossible. Raphael's inbox painted the story first. 3 shell firms funneling cut-rate hardware to Fort Wilkes, half a dozen Fortune 500s, even a federal grant program, plenty of margin for a private love nest. He juggled at least 5 other women besides Helen. I flagged the sleaziest threads, then cracked his Ledger 6 corporate cards, kickback notes typed in plain text. The audio feed was worse. A shipping clerk at the depot complained about duplicate serial numbers. Raphael barked, then ordered 2 specialized label printers online. A supplier begged entry to the contract list. Raphael named a price $15 grand under the table, plus a 2% bump on every invoice. The man folded. Another call. Someone inside purchasing leaked rival bid sizes for cash. And, woven through, 4 mistress calls sewn from Helen, the same furtive planning I'd caught on her dash cam. By late afternoon, I was drained. I sorted everything, mail, audio, video, into encrypted folders. Helen and Raphael, pushed a mirror to an off-site drive, and stared at the monitor. This wasn't just adultery. It was procurement fraud, bribery felonies that could swallow everyone in their orbit. I rang Cliff Logan. He listened without interrupting. At the end, I exhaled. "Cliff, I need official help. This isn't just my marriage anymore." What would you do if your spouse's affair turned out to be only the tip of something far darker and you felt the undertow closing around you? When I finished laying everything out, Cliff Logan just nodded. "This helps. I can't walk it straight into a courtroom, but it'll make the task force brief 10 times sharper." His tone was all business, but the subtext was clear. He'd already been quietly probing Fort Wilkes' receiving department for months. Vanishing inventory, lost pallets, duplicate serials that looked fine on spreadsheets but not on loading docks. "I need every file you've got," he said, suddenly urgent. "I'll drop by before Helen comes home. Your office okay?" "No," Cliff cut in. "My place. 3 o'clock sharp. Fewer eyes. Dinner and drinks on me. You can drown your sorrows. I'm driving." We hung up. At last. A plan on that ended with whiskey and self-loathing on Cliff's couch, but a plan all the same. The clock read 12:55 p.m. Helen would be meeting Raphael Vargas any minute. I rang her cell, straight to voicemail. Heading to Cliff's late night. Don't wait up, I said. Then buried myself in the mountain of Lodge, cam footage I'd pulled since Monday. The first shock hit fast. Early Monday, a woman breezed into room 106 with a keycard. Raphael nearly vaulted the chair to scoop her onto the bed. Tuesday morning, he slept with the maid. Tuesday afternoon, a different woman in a different uniform knocked. I archived every clip. Leverage is leverage. By 3, I'd burned an encrypted thumb drive for Cliff and was waiting on his porch when he rolled up. We spent 2 hours sifting. Emails, call logs, QB, books exports, supplier shakedowns, mistress schedules, the entire cesspool. Then we headed to a quiet bar and tried to forget it existed. I barely remember stumbling in after midnight. Thursday, Dawn brought a skull splitter and an empty house. Helen had left a curt note. Since you were too drunk to set your alarm, I'm not your alarm clock. I actually laughed. Her anger spared me another performance of loving husband. I called in sick, drove straight to the lodge for Wednesday's footage, dreading and needing it in equal measure. Halfway home, Cliff called. The probe was now official. The clerk who'd pocketed the $5,000 kickback was wired. Fort Wilkes Command and military police were staging a sweep. Raphael's office, motel room, even his house. Make sure nothing traces back to you, Cliff warned. I'm wiping the K-loggers and back doors now, I said. A pause, because the leak came from purchasing. Helen's on the person of interest list. Paper trail only, but still. My gut flipped. For years, I'd sworn Helen would never betray me. Now, I wasn't sure what she wouldn't do. Back home, my hands shook while I forced myself through Wednesday's feed until 12:30. Couldn't watch more. I switched to Raphael's inbox. Fresh kickback deals. New girlfriends. I forwarded every thread to Cliff, flagged each detail. At last, I opened the folder marked Helen. Wednesday. There she was, slipping into the room. They hugged, kissed, undressed without a word, collapsed onto the bed. Thursday night, the house felt hollow. The kids were out. Helen and I drifted past each other like tenant sub, letting the same silence, trading fewer than a dozen words. I swapped the data recorder from Helen's SUV and carried it into the garage to copy the files, curiosity gnawing at me. She'd never risk a bedroom call while I slept off a hangover, and she wouldn't use the kitchen phone with Grace and Lucas around, so her commute was the safest window. The moment I hit play, Denise's voice chirped through the earbuds, bright and early, asking how things had gone. Helen sounded drained yet relieved. Raphael was fine. I told him to be gentler. Still a bit rough, but he enjoys the time. And Doug? Denise pressed. Helen let out a tiny sob. Nothing. He got drunk with Cliff, stumbled in reeking of whiskey, passed out without a word. So what'd you do? I just lay there, fuming, while he snored. In the morning, I shut off his alarm and left a note I had to get out. Denise tried to steady her. Maybe he just needed to blow off steam. No, I hinted all evening. Helen snapped. Yesterday morning, I told him I'd wear him out tonight. He said nothing, just went to work. Didn't even say goodbye. Think he suspects? Denise whispered. How could he? I meet Raphael when Doug's at the plant. He's just mad we're down to once a week, so now he's punishing me by ignoring me. I killed the playback and smirked if she was angry. Maybe I could dodge another performance. Thursday drifted by. Helen made a few unmistakable overtures in bed. I ignored them, staring at the ceiling until sleep finally dragged me under near 2 a.m. Sorry, Denise, you misread this round. Before dawn Friday, I slipped the organic trace kit under my arm and headed to work, then swung by Silver Pines for Thursday's footage. Marcia wasn't pouring that shift, but I nursed a soda while the download finished. Back home, I transferred the files and ran the trace kit positive. No surprise, still a gut punch. One clip stung harder than the rest. Marcia entering 106, accepting an envelope of cash from Raphael. A hurried, transactional romp that ended as quickly as it started. 2 earlier files piled on Helen's co-worker Marge, arranging a rendezvous, and then Helen herself, hugging Raphael, a brief kneel, gone within minutes. I boxed the 3 worst files for Cliff, phoned and insisted on an immediate meetup. His office was closer than my place before Helen's commute ended, so we rendezvous there. I handed him the drive. First file, watch it. I'll wait in the car. Nearly an hour later, Cliff slid into the passenger seat, eyes flat. Bar, he muttered. I don't need bourbon. I need answers maybe from Marcia, I said as we parked. Inside, Marcia off-duty spotted us, waved us to a booth, and ordered gin and tonics before we sat. After a quiet hug for Cliff and a squeeze of my hand, she took her seat. Cliff met her gaze. Marcia, what happened? Her face folded. You were right, she admitted. I got tested, there's an STI. That's why I'm off the bar. I can't risk passing it. I tried to steady her. You'll finish school, you'll beat this. Cliff overlapped me. You're going to be a nurse. Marcia stared at the glass. I'll survive. Somehow. The silence grew heavy. Secrets stacking like weights on a rib cage. How many can one person carry before they collapse, and how much pain does it take to finally say, enough? I don't need to save for school anymore. That's enough, Marcia murmured, voice thinner than paper. Cliff didn't let her finish. He reached across the table, gripped her hand. Number not even close. You talked about becoming a nurse the night I booked you into that holding cell. Every shift since, you've marched toward it. I'm not letting you torch the goal line now, I nodded. We'll sort it out, Marcia. Together. She looked at us, eyes glistening. I couldn't ask for better friends, but I won't use you. Accepting help would cheapen the friendship. Cliff and I traded a glance. I leaned forward. Okay, you're not asking. And since you can't stop us, conversation over. We'll be in touch. She laughed a real, cornered, but loved laugh. I pivoted to Cliff. Openings at Fort Wilkes are still coming, right? Before he could reply, Marcia's mood shifted. She folded her hands, sober. 2 things you should know. First, I can see room 106 from the bar windows. I know you're tailing Rafael Vargas. I hope you nail that bastard. Cliff's face stayed neutral, but he dipped his head once. Second, she went on, voice cracking. The day I found out I was positive, I walked to his door, looked him straight in the eye. Why? I breathed. To hurt him. It was all I had to give back. That night I collapsed into bed near midnight. Helen was already out cold. Cliff now had every detail of the sting and was lining up a purchasing office slot for Marcia once the house cleaning at the depot began. Saturday drifted. Helen and I exchanged maybe a dozen words. Movie night felt off tempo. I carried drinks in, expecting to sit beside her, but she'd wedged herself between Grace and Lucas on the couch, wearing that small, self-satisfied smile. I took the armchair, tucked the moment away for later. After she turned in, I scanned the logs, mostly dead air. One email, though, from Rafael. Thanks for Friday. Counting the hours till Wednesday. Sunday was mechanical. I went up before her and noticed she still changed in the bathroom, still shielding bruises. She slid under the quilt just hard enough to jolt me if I'd been asleep. I lay motionless. She angled away, as though distance were an answer. Monday afternoon, Cliff called. Search warrants were green-lit. The clerk who'd paid Vargas the $5,000 grease was wired. Fort Wilkes MPs would hit office, lodge, and residence the following Monday at 0500. Don't confront Helen, he warned. One spooked move and Vargas bolts. I agreed. Our cover story held. I'd be on a business trip, Wednesday through Sunday, when in fact I'd hole up in Harborview Suites, room 318, finishing the last tweaks. Jean booked me in right above 106. At dinner, I told Grace, Lucas, and Helen about the trip. The kids groaned. Helen said nothing. Tuesday, we passed like strangers. After they slept, I reviewed the new captures. One call froze me. Helen to Denise. That creep is ruining everything, Helen hissed. Vargas or Doug? Doug. He says he's leaving tomorrow till Sunday. Again. I can't juggle them both in one day, Denise sighed. Figure out your husband before your fantasies. I know. If Doug would quit acting like a jerk, I'd blow his mind. Why's it so hard? Great. She's betraying me, and somehow I'm the obstacle. I archived the clip. Wednesday pre-dawn, I eased out, gear loaded, spare recorder, flash drives, soft sniffer scripts, room key. I had a plan. But no plan prepares you for the second your life turns inside out when you realize just how far someone you love will go to keep a secret. I set up the receiver and 2 laptops in Harborview Suites room, 318, directly over 106, and tied everything to the lodge's Ethernet. 5 days of live feeds, unlimited bandwidth, and enough canned coffee to keep me grimly alert. At exactly 1:01 p.m., Helen's sedan rolled into the gravel lot. She slung her laptop bag over her shoulder and slipped into Raphael's room. On the feed, she dropped the bag, hugged him, kissed him, murmured, "Let me check my mail." They perched side by side, tapping away for 10 minuteshi on lodge Wi-Fi. He half reclined on the mattress. While they focused on screens, I tunneled into both machines, pulling projects, inboxes, QB books, ledgers, anything that smelled like leverage. When the work masks dropped, Raphael scooped her up and tumbled her onto the bed. I muted the audio, left one corner of the screen visible while sifting folders. Their bodies tangled, sheets knotted, breath sharp. Long red scratches blossomed across his back. 2 hours later, they collapsed in a damp heap and dozed almost 4 more. Near 5, Helen stirred, eyes flashing to the clock. She whispered, "Raphael, we overslept." He blinked awake. "Time?" "After 5, I've got to run." "Me too. Promised Sophia dinner." Helen swatted his shoulder, half teasing. "Spare me the spouse small talk. Makes me jealous." He sighed. "I like pretending you're only mine." She shook her head. "I choose to share, but I still love my husband. I can't blow up my marriage." He shrugged. "I don't want Sophia finding out either." He winced, probing the scratches. "Feels like sunburn." Helen's hand flew to her mouth. "Sorry I got carried away. Guess passion's hard to cage," he joked. They dressed. He cupped her hip, kissed her, and promised, "Soon, babe," before she slipped into the dusk looking wrung out and empty. Thursday and Friday, I split hours between plant reports and that room's gray window. Thursday afternoon, Helen rang Raphael. She couldn't do this anymore, cutting contact. They bickered. By goodbye, they'd agreed to talk soon. Late Friday, I yanked the last data sets and scrubbed every K-logger trace from both laptops routing through Raphael's machine, so the lodge IP, not mine. Stained the logs. Every shady bid, every kickback thread I forwarded to Helen's inbox. If she was going down, she'd take her co-conspirator. Sunday afternoon, I crept home. The house was empty. I gathered every room mic, wiped them clean, left Brian to chase the one in Helen's car. By evening, the family bustled in with groceries and shopping bags, everyone wearing their best imitation of normal. Monday mid-morning, buried in spreadsheets, I got the call. Our family doctor's office, the receptionist tight-voiced. "Dr. Harris would like you to come in today, Mr. Harris. It's important." Ice slid down my spine. Contracts, raids, revengeful of it went fuzzy. What had the lab found that trumped every plan I thought I understood? I was halfway through a sandwich at the suite's desk when my cell lit up with Dr. Patel's number. "I need you to come in for some tests, Doug." My stomach folded. "Doc, just give it to me straight. Is this a will update situation?" He exhaled. "Helen was here this morning feeling run down." Her STIB panel lit up 3 positives. "She swore she hasn't been with anyone except you, so we assumed. I'll be there in 10. The clinic's usual smiles were gone. The nurse hit my vein like she had a score to settle, then left me pacing for nearly an hour before Dr. Patel returned, brows knitted. "You're clean," he said, still puzzled. "I'm sorry, Doug. I believed Helen's story." Relief and frost washed through me at once. "Print the results, please." Just then, my phone rang Grace's number, her voice ragged with tears. "Dad, Mom told Lucas and me you cheated and made her sick. She says it's all your fault. Grace, I'm in Dr. Patel's office right now. I have 0 infections. Here, let him explain." I handed the phone over. The doctor laid out the facts in plain English. Grace came back on, still sniffling. I'm sorry, Dad, she sounded so sure. It's all right, honey. Tell Lucas. And please don't mention this call to Mom yet. I'll be home soon. At reception, the administrator slid 2 envelopes across the counter. Your clean panel, Mr. Harris. And, your wife's wrong pile, I guess. Her eyes said it wasn't a mistake. I thanked her quietly and drove home, the papers burning in my pocket. Voices spilled from the living room, crying, raised accusations. I stepped into the kitchen first, but Mr. Bennett barreled in, fists clenched, face crimson. You lying bastard! You gave my daughter a disease? I met his glare and handed him both reports. He read them once, twice, 6 times thunder draining from his shoulders. You're clean, he muttered. She lied to all of us. I nodded. We've barely been intimate lately. That's what saved me. You couldn't have known. He closed his eyes, pain replacing fury. Doug, I'm sorry for what I said and what I thought. Thank you for looking. I managed. My marriage may be finished, but at least the truth's on the table. He motioned toward the living room where Helen, Grace, Lucas, and Mrs. Bennett waited amid crumpled tissues and raw nerves. Let's talk, he said hoarsely, and we walked together into the storm that was about to become our family's tribunal. I grabbed Mr. Bennett by the front of his flannel, pinning him against the kitchen table hard enough to rattle the glasses, shocking even myself. He was a retired coal miner, half a head taller. Could have driven me through the drywall if he'd wanted, but for that heartbeat, it didn't matter. I needed him to understand one thing. This was my marriage, my children, and no one, even Grace's iron-willed grandfather, was going to dictate what happened next. This talk happens on my terms, I hissed. She's your daughter, but she's my wife. Helen dragged you, your wife, and our kids into this circus. Grace called me in tears. Lucas hasn't said a word. You're here because Helen made you a witness. From this moment, you stay out of the way. Clear? Rage drained from his face, replaced by the grudging respect of one hard man for another. Yeah, Doug. Clear. I released him, and we stepped into the living room storm. Mrs. Bennett and Helen launched accusations the instant they saw me. Lucas sat in the corner, wiping silent tears. Grace dodged her grandfather and flew into my arms, hugging as if she might drown without the anchor. Lucas followed, wrapping me in a double embrace while Helen sobbed into the sofa cushions. Grace spotted the papers in my hand, the Brookwood Diagnostics DNA panel and the STI results. Her eyes searched mine. Is this proof? She whispered. I nodded. She guided Lucas aside and showed him the highlighted lines. Doug Harris negative on all panels. Helen Harris positive for 3. Foreign male DNA detected. They read, shared a look, then clutched me even tighter. Mrs. Bennett's fury flared. How can you hug that traitor? He infected your mother. Grace didn't flinch. She knelt, handed both sheets to her grandmother. Mrs. Bennett's face blanched as the truth seeped in. Helen's gaze darted around the room, panic mounting. Why is everyone looking at me like that? Grace knelt in front of her. Mom, you lied. You cheated. You tried to turn us against Dad. I love you, but I'll never forget what you did. Helen's hand lashed out. Grace blocked it with lightning reflexes. Don't try to hit me again, she said, voice trembling but iron. You lost that right. For a heartbeat, it was just the 3 of us, Grace, Lucas, and me clinging to one another in the wreckage. Helen seized the moment to spin a final story. Kids, your father must have infected me weeks ago. We haven't been intimate because he keeps refusing me. He's framing me. I've never been with anyone but your dad. Silence thickened. Mr. Bennett's fists flexed. Mrs. Bennett hovered between doubt and shame. Even Grace and Lucas looked momentarily uncertain. I met Helen's eyes and offered one last escape hatch. Helen, tell the truth. I have the evidence. Admit it, and maybe there's something left to salvage. She bared her teeth like a cornered animal. You have no proof. You're smearing my honor. Show everyone your so-called evidence. Gladly, I said. I opened my laptop, cabled it to the television, and breathe through the ache of every sleepless night spent gathering receipts. The sting against Rafael Vargas was already in motion, but now the reckoning was here for Helen as well. I loaded the site I'd built over the weekend hosting costs, charged to one of Vargas's corporate cards for poetic symmetry, and clicked play. The first image filled the big screen. A still frame of Helen and Rafael in room 106, timestamp glowing. Gasps rippled across the room. The next clip rolled voices, faces, dates. Lucas covered his mouth. Grace's eyes brimmed but never left the screen. Mr. Bennett sank onto the ottoman like a felled oak. Mrs. Bennett wept openly. Helen's sob turned into a strangled moan as the last of her denials crumbled. Nothing about this family would ever be the same again, and the tribunal had only just begun. I fixed my stare on Helen, hunched on the sofa between her parents while Grace and Lucas hovered just behind me. My voice came out low, colder than I intended. "You told Rafael on Thursday you were cutting things off, didn't you?" She let out a brittle laugh. "You're delusional, Doug. There's never been anyone but you, and at this point, I don't care what you think." I didn't answer. Instead, I lifted the television remote, opened Outlook on the big screen, and highlighted an inbox sender, Rafael Vargas. Recognize the name? Color drained from her cheeks. She mouthed, "Number." I clicked the latest message. A single link glowed in the body. I glanced at the kids. "If you'd rather step out." Grace cut me off. "She dragged us into this. We stay." Lucas folded his arms. "Dad, if you send us away, I'll type that URL on my phone in 10 seconds. Nobody objected. Even Mr. and Mrs. Bennett stood frozen. I nodded and tapped the link. The screen washed blue. A deep male voice rolled through the room. "Welcome to the Vargas Trophy Hall. Married, mostly. Easy marks. Hidden cameras record everything. If you like what you see, message for full HD clips." Photos cycled. Fully clothed women at first. Then the fourth slide stopped my wife's breath. Helen, in her gray depot pantsuit. Meet Helen H. mid-50s. Plenty of footage. Click for sample splicing on request. Helen began to shake. I hovered the cursor, clicked. 8 thumbnails filled the page of different angles, unmistakably her. She crumpled, sobbing. Mrs. Bennett drew her in. Mr. Bennett stared at the carpet, shocked. "I think that's enough," I murmured. "Not yet," Grace said, voice wavering but firm. She took the mouse and opened the first clip. A second buffered, then the room echoed with muffled moans. Grace recoiled. "God, Mom, how could you?" Lucas looked away, jaw clenched. Helen collapsed deeper into her mother's arms. Grace closed the window, tears streaking her cheeks, and turned to me. "Dad, we've seen enough." She and Lucas wrapped me in a fierce hug. Silence settled, broken only by Helen's sobs. After a long moment, I asked, "Why?" Words failed her. "I don't know. I'm sorry. So sorry." She dissolved again. I handed Lucas my keys. "Take your sister. Grab dinner, a movie, use the cards. Clear your heads." "We'll be back later," he said. Grace squeezed my hand, dashed upstairs for her purse, and the kids slipped out. I faced Helen and her parents. "I'll be back in 30 minutes. Helen, we need to talk when I return, and it's best if you two stay." I stepped outside, the door clicking shut behind me, aware that when I walked back in, every secret would already be on the table, and whatever came next would rewrite all our lives. I walked the block twice, lungs aching from the thick July air, before I forced myself back up the drive. Through the kitchen window, I spotted Helen at the table with her parents, shoulders hunched, eyes swollen. The tension felt like static on my skin. The moment I stepped inside, she jerked to her feet, chair screeching. "Doug, thanks for coming back," she whispered. I sat across from her, palms flat on the wood. "There's one more thing we have to cover." Color seeped from her face. She looked 10 years older than she had at lunch. "Helen, Rafael Vargas was arrested this morning." The words hit like a hammer. Everyone froze. I kept my tone even. "Cliff's task force has been digging into Fort Wilkes procurement for months. Vargas was running kickbacks, blackmailing suppliers today. MPs raided his office, his shell companies, and, yes, his suite at Silver Pines. 2 depot employees from receiving and purchasing were cuffed as well. Helen's lip quivered. No. Oh God. No. I leaned closer. Cliff found emails yours feeding Raphael confidential bid numbers. She shot upright, panic flaring. I would never leak contracts. I swear never. Mrs. Bennett sliced in, voice razor sharp. Why should we believe you now? Helen's breath hitched. Tears spilled. I pressed on. The only reason you're not in cuffs is because Clerk AF stretched protocol on account of our marriage. Be in his office at 0800 tomorrow, or federal agents will fetch you. Her gaze pleaded. Doug, I lied about the affair. Yes, about the tests. Yes, God. I tried to frame you, but I never sent him restricted files. I swear to God. Did you ever take your depot laptop to Silver Pines? A tiny nod. Sometimes. I'd work while we... Did you ever leave it open, connected to the base, then shower or nap? Another miserable nod. I hauled out her laptop, powered it up, yanked the Ethernet. The login prompt waited. Password? After a long pause, she gave it. I navigated to the scheduler I'd planted during my remote sweep-hand outbound blast to her entire contacts list set for midnight. With the internet disabled, it wouldn't fire, but the draft was enough. Helen, Raphael installed remote control where he could view, copy, even schedule emails. Looks like revenge for you dumping him. I pointed to the queued message. Her eyes widened. She gasped. He set me up! Maybe. If Cliff can link those leaks to Vargas's IP, it may keep you out of prison. But you'll need to cooperate fully. She slumped, parents flanking her in shell-shocked silence. The line between guilt and innocence had never felt thinner, and now the next move, for all of us, would be played on federal turf. I'd made sure every digital breadcrumb would slam Raphael Vargas in the face. Every kickback spreadsheet, every soft sniffer call log, every high-def clip he'd bragged about. The last payload I left on his laptop was a camera daemon that auto-archived each new video straight to the local drive. When MPs tore through his love nest, it looked as if Vargas himself had lovingly organized the evidence time-stamped files, folder, sorted by partner. Cliff's task force handed federal prosecutors an open and shut bundle: procurement fraud, conspiracy, racketeering, extortion, tax evasion. Day 1 in county lockup, he was served IRS and state notices for back taxes on every consulting fee he'd ever pocketed. Day 2, Sofia Vargas filed for divorce. Her lawyer cleared the house before Raphael even learned the firm's name. His businesses folded, the depot blacklist circulated, and the base treated the whole saga like a cautionary PowerPoint. A few quiet months later, I sat opposite Cliff Logan at our usual corner booth, nursing gin and tonics. Not quite the balance Marcia used to pour, but close enough. Marcia now worked in Fort Wilkes procurement by day and chased pre-med courses at night. The bar felt different without her easy laugh behind the taps. I reminded Cliff I still owed him for the loaner recorders I'd requisitioned. He grinned. Considering we burned through about $1,500 each in gadgets last quarter. Doug, let's call it square. I raised my glass. Victory. Light in a tumbler. That's when Jason Denise's husband shuffled in, eyes red-rimmed, suit rumpled like he'd slept in it all week. I waved him over and ordered an extra round. The new bartender hit the tonic ratio dead on. I slid a thick envelope across the table. Audio of Denise and Helen laughing about exciting secrets. Files summarizing Raphael's arrest. The STI, fallout, everything. Jason sipped, the glass trembling. Then he turned to Cliff, voice flat but steady. I think I need to rent some of that official surveillance gear you two favor. Looks like the cycle's starting again. Cliff and I exchanged a look equal parts, sympathy and tired acceptance. Out here, beneath the soft amber bar lights, we felt like veterans of the same endless war. Because once the dam of secrets bursts, you never know whose life will be the next wreckage washed ashore.